Hello, everyone. Welcome to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays. I'm Dill. That's Kelsey. I'm wearing, sporting the Yankees. We're on a high right now. Actually, well, we were on a
Nice.
low, and then we were on a high,
Oh,
then a low, then a high.
okay.
Aaron,
Little
Aaron
roller
Judge.
coaster.
Aaron Judge breaks the home run record, or ties. Sorry, he breaks the American League home run record at 62 home runs. Then we go on the postseason. We win the first game, lose the next two, but then we won tonight, or well, last night. If you're listening to this Monday, we won last night. So we have another game coming up tonight. If you're listening on Monday, and if we lose that, we're out. If we win that, we're in the next round.
Oof.
So this is it. It's game
High
5,
stakes.
best 3 out of 5. So I'm exhausted just because I've been working and also balancing all the Yankees watching and all the movie watching and all the show
Mm,
watching. There's just too much to watch, and that's
yeah.
why, spoiler alert, hate to say it, but y'all, we're taking the first ever week off next week. We rarely, if ever, take a week off.
Oof.
The only times we've taken
I don't
weeks
think
off
we
is
ever
like
have.
for the holiday
Just
season.
only for the
Like,
holidays.
yeah, we took a few weeks off just because it was like the end of our first season, beginning of our second one. But yeah, we haven't really taken weeks off. But we're going to give you 2 episodes on Halloween. So I just want to tell you right now, the matches that were supposed to happen next week, we are going to postpone another week just because of scheduling, mostly on my end. Because my schedule is the most limited, and then Kelsey's is the next limited after that. The competitors have pretty open schedules; just ours don't line up with theirs. But the next week we do. So I will also blame Zach for that. Zach has a busy schedule as well. But yeah, the four competitors,
Yeah,
we
Zach.
have are going to be very gracious with scheduling. But like, we had to push it another week, so you're going to get those matches on Halloween. We'll probably all be dressed up. It'll probably be a lot of fun. But also, we do still want to do our Halloween video where we talk about all the movies we've been watching, because Kelsey's been doing a 31 Days of Halloween on her TikTok. I've been doing a 31 Days of Halloween on my Letterboxd. This is my 3rd year doing it. This is Kelsey's, I believe, 1st year doing it. So, and I
Yes.
know so many people on Twitter have been doing it. So if you're watching and you do it 31 Days of Halloween, send us some questions. Tell us what you've been watching, because we'll be covering that in 2 weeks as well. The next week's going to be a week off. So I wanted to get the scheduling out of the way now, just because, it's good to know if you're wondering next week where we are. That is where we are. Well, we are nowhere. We are doing other things just because we're very busy people. But Kelsey, how are you doing otherwise? Now that I prefaced that and gotten that out of the way, how are you feeling?
I'm doing great today. I feel a little bit of some tickling in my throat and some
Mm,
sniffles happening.
well,
It's cold and flu season is upon us. So
mm,
I'm doing my due diligence. I'm drinking my orange juice and taking my Dayquil. So just trying to stay well. But other than that, I've been having a fantastic October. I'm gonna start doing this every year with these scary movies because I'm really
yeah,
having such a great time.
yeah,
It's been a lot of
and
fun doing it on TikTok.
yeah, we'll talk about it in 2 weeks. But like, you're going for like the classics, like the most iconic, not even
Mhm.
classics, but like the most like iconic ones, with like maybe 1 or 2 niche ones. And they're like, Jennifer's Body was like a niche one, but you're hitting mostly the
Sure.
major like tent poles. So I'm excited. Like, that's kind of what I did my first year too. But then like now this
Mhm.
year, I have been going A through Z. And I'm just like picking, like, for the letter Q, there was only like one horror movie that started with the letter Q, and I hadn't heard of it before. So like, I'm finding new discoveries of movies I've never even heard of or thought about looking at.
Nice.
So we'll talk about them, but like, it's going to be fun. Like, if you do this another year or two later, you'll see how deep into the lexicon of horror you can get. Um,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah, like, a lot of spooky stuff on the horizons. But She-Hulk, not as spooky. We'll talk about She-Hulk. We're talking about the final 2 episodes of the first season, aka series of She-Hulk. I'm assuming they'll do a season 2. I don't see how they wouldn't, or why they wouldn't, because it's a sitcom. It allows for
Mhm.
that. Or maybe this was the button. This is the end. A lot to talk about, especially with the finale. I mean, the penultimate episode is kind of what we've been seeing in trailers for months now. So we knew that was all
Mhm.
coming, but it's more the finale that I really want to talk about. But before we get to that, have a little bit of the Marvel news. Blade, oh, poor Blade. We've talked about how Blade's been going through some problems.
Mhm.
Blade is now officially like kind of back to square one. They're going to really take a look at rewriting the script, figuring everything out. I heard Mahershala Ali has been like taken on to like actually look over the script himself, which is not usually a privilege actors get to have in the MCU. They rarely get a say with the scripts. I think Robert Downey Jr. was like the last big one who actually like had a big influence on the script. But Mahershala Ali, they're giving him some creative control, and it looks like they're trying to
Mm.
scrap it together, because we have 4 new release dates. Blade will now be releasing September 6th of 2024. Deadpool 3 was pushed from September 6th to November 8th of 2024. And following right along, Fantastic Four was moved from its previous release date to February 14th, aka Valentine's Day of 2025, and Secret Wars was delayed to May 1st of 2026. So some shifting,
Mm,
not a huge deal because all these are still far in the future. It's not like Wakanda Forever is going to come out a year later. Like we're still getting that next month. Tickets went
right.
on sale for that. So these are movies that are way down the line. But any thoughts on that? Do you think that spells trouble, or do you think that's a good thing because that means they're taking more time to like fix it, or do you think it's like a shit? Our visual effects department is severely underpaid and overworked, and we need to figure out how we're going to get these movies done by then. We're like scrambling. What do you think?
Mm.
Like this release date push, do you think it indicates scrambling or more just like time to make it better? We're like refinement.
I don't know, Dill, because it sounds like, Blade starting from square one. It doesn't sound like this is it's a just a visual effects department kind of wrench in the plans. I think that this is like, everything is kind of starting at square one, all these very far out projects that we have going on. So I like to believe that they really just want to put their best foot forward with everything, and so that they're just gonna, they're saying we're gonna take all the time that we need to make sure that these
Mhm.
projects are everything that they can and should be.
Yeah.
That's at
I
least
was
what
just
I'm gonna believe is
yeah.
going on.
Yeah, I was just putting my Freddie and Jason back there just for some holiday effect. As we
Oh,
get deeper in
nice.
the holiday season, I also have little Michael Myers here. I unboxed him for Halloween ends. I was like, I need to take you with me to the theater. He was in the theater more than Michael Myers was in the movie, but that's not a complaint I have. I actually like the movie a lot. Yeah,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, we'll talk about it when we talk about all the movies we
We'll
watch.
talk
But
about it when we talk about it.
um, so yeah, I mean that's kind of all the news I had this week. Did you have any news, Marvel news?
No, not
No. Okay.
particularly. All
Well, we
my
did
news I
see.
get from you, Dill.
I was gonna say we did get a little snippet of the new assembled episode because it was part of the finale for She-Hulk, the Marvel's assembled episode. But we'll
Oh,
get there when we
right,
get there.
right,
We
right.
first have to
Yes.
talk about episode 8. We saw the
Yes.
tease coming all along. Daredevil episode, yay! Daredevil's back. Some people thought it was kind of dumb to make him funny, but it's like this is a sitcom. You got to make him funny. I mean, because the show is so serious, so dark. It's so like I'm
Yeah.
Batman, like so serious, but it's also like these people are also
Well,
people, and he's also on vacation in New York. Well, not vacation, but he's on job in New York, or not in New York. He's
in
the other end.
LA.
He's in LA, so it's like
Yeah.
let him have a little fun. Um, let him be part of the tone of this piece and not try to make this a Daredevil episode. Like if we want a Daredevil episode, oh yeah, we're getting an 18 episode series, so like we're fine.
Yeah.
But what did you think of this episode? And you can kind of segue that to the overall summary as we talk about it, because this is a little old. This episode's about 2 weeks old, so people have been talking about it a lot. We don't need to dwell on it too much. But, what I really want to talk about is the finale, but we do have to cover this since we haven't. What are your thoughts on this?
Absolutely. Dill, I have love-hate relationships with both of these final episodes. I've
Ooh,
I've been
okay.
going back and forth with how I've been feeling about them, how I feel about the finale in particular. I'm just wrestling with a lot of emotions. So why don't
Okay.
we just jump right into
Yeah.
episode 8 here,
Yeah.
titled Ribbit and Rip It. So here
Yes.
we go. After getting a client who is suing Luke Jacobson for a faulty suit, Jen puts her relationship with her tailor at risk and becomes extra friendly with his defense attorney. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Later, this is the best way I could put it. Later, shit hits the fan at the gala where Jen is nominated for Female Lawyer of the Year.
Yeah, I forgot the gala was even in this episode. I feel like we ended, and actually that's something the episode comments on. Like I thought the ending was
Yes.
her getting fucked, and I was like, okay, yeah, great, happy ending. And I was like, wait, it's still going, and she's like, this is still going, and I'm like, yeah, we're on the same page, Jen Walters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were a little bit more mixed, it sounds like, on these 2 episodes, because these 2 episodes, spoiler, are my 2 favorites of the season. And I haven't ranked them yet, but like I'm excited to like talk
Okay,
about all these
Dill.
episodes in the season. I mean, that honestly, I'll be honest, this seems to kind of be the consensus out there. So you're a little bit more of a contrarian today, but that's okay. We are also 2 people who loved Eternals, and people seem to hate us for that. So,
Right. I
yeah, but like,
I will
you tell me like
defend
what.
Eternals until the day I die.
Yeah, what were you not vibing with this one, or is it kind of like a segue into like certain plot elements specifically?
Dill, I think I just walked away with this one, feeling, you know, I feel like I might have judged a little too harshly with my opening remarks about these two episodes. I have a lot to say about the finale, but for this
Yeah.
one in particular, like I had a train of thought and then it left the station. No one got on.
Mm, it's like Inside
Anyway, let's
Out.
just talk about it then. And then as soon as it
Yeah,
comes
go.
back to
Let's
me,
go
I'll let
through
you
it.
know.
Yeah, yeah. Let it come to you because I have thoughts as well. So continue, Kels.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun. It was fun, and I have thoughts. We'll
Let's get into it. Yeah, yeah.
I'll let you know when the train comes back to the station.
Hmm.
Okay, so we start off. We get our classic like recap. Here's what you missed on Glee nonsense, and they usually show us key moments of all the episodes that came before that, or they usually the recap hints at who's going to be brought back into the episodes. In particularly, we were reminded about the guy
The
Todd, who
designer.
she went on a date
Oh,
with.
right, right.
Who? What'd you say?
I was asking if you meant the designer because also him as well.
Oh yeah, also the designer Luke Jacobson, but also in particular we were reminded about Todd, the guy she went on a date with, who was interested in what it would take to penetrate her skin. And then we get our Marvel intro. We get we're immediately we're at a parking lot where these two goons, if you will, the goons versus henchmen debate. Who knows? I'm going to call them goons, though, for the
Hmm.
sake of argument. They seem to be stealing from what looks like a Best Buy. They're packing in some good flat screens in the back of their truck, and we get introduced to a superhero. He introduces himself as the Guard Frog, but his real name is Leapfrog, and he's stopping these two guys from stealing some TVs, but his suit is defective. As soon as he tries to leap off into to fight them, his boots catch on fire, and he's unable to complete his mission. So now we cut back to Jen Walters' office. We see he's seeking a lawyer now because he wants to sue the person who made him the suit, gave him the faulty boots, caused him all this harm and grief. So then but the person who made his suit is Luke Jacobson, the person who
Yeah.
also made all of Jen Walters' outfits, her crime fighting suit. It's a conflict of interest here, Dill.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like the same thing with the Abomination. It's like, of course, the one client you asked me to represent, it's like this person. Like, it's
Yeah.
and that's life. Like, honestly, that happens a lot more than like people like to admit. Where it's like, oh fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in the superhero world where everything's so close quarters. Like, there's only so many people in the superhero community
Right.
for lawyers. So yeah, it's unfortunate.
I imagine the superhero world is much like the acting world, where it's like this big and everyone knows everyone.
Yeah.
Must be
It's
hard.
exactly that. It's like, yeah, oh, we need to fill this role. Oh, I'll call my friend in. I know a great guy. He'd be perfect for the role. He comes in. It's the same guy that like had a bad audition 2 years ago that the director remembers. It's like when you audition for the same
Yeah,
people over and again. You're like, oh God, yeah,
exactly.
you again. Yeah, so it totally makes
Exactly.
sense. Yeah.
So Jen goes to her boss, Mr. Holloway, and she's like, I can't be put on this case. Like, can Pug do it? It just simply can't be me. And he's like, well, Mr. Patillo? Yeah, I think Mr.
Basically.
Patilio Senior Leapfrog, aka Eugene Patilio's father, is one of their biggest clients at the law firm. So they absolutely have to use Jen to represent him in this case because he needs the best chance that he can get. So I looked into our good friend Leapfrog here in my handy dandy Marvel encyclopedia. I was doing all kinds of research for
I was
these
gonna say,
episodes
as soon as
still.
these names were coming up, I was like, yeah, Kelsey's on it. Like Leapfrog, especially because, like,
All
again,
kinds
this
of
show
research.
introduced us to so many weird characters that we would never get
Mhm.
their own movies, but are great for this type of thing, like the elf who could shapeshift, or like the guy who's invincible when he jumps out of buildings. Like, it's like you're never gonna base a Hulk franchise on that character, but it's like this allows for us to just bring in these oddball, kind of almost rough anti-hero type characters, which I really like.
Yeah. So Eugene Patilio is the son of Vincent Patilio, the father that is apparently the biggest client at the law firm Jen works at. He's actually introduced in, fun fact, I loved finding this out. His first introduction to the Marvel comics was in Daredevil number 25 comic, which makes a lot of sense because someone else is from the Daredevil comics is going to be introduced this episode as well. I
I
wonder who it
wonder
could
which
be.
character.
So his powers are he has electric coils in his boots that allow him to leap about 60 feet in the air, and he also has an exoskeleton similar to a frog that provides him enhanced strength. So what had happened to him was that he started off as a toy inventor. He invented the coils for the boots, and then he turned actually to a life of crime. Leapfrog isn't a hero; he is a
Yeah.
villain.
And we
And
kind
then
of
he was
gather that from this episode, even like he's got some criminal
right.
ways, or he's at least not he's not like a role model, let's say.
No, he's a very misguided hero, to say the
Mhm.
least. And so he started operating under the alias Leapfrog, and then Eugene, his son, eventually took over. But he took over for his father under a different name. He was actually going by Frogman, which wasn't mentioned during this episode. But I think
Mhm.
Leapfrog just makes him sound a little bit more pathetic and just like, you know,
See, I think Leapfrog's kind
he's
of
like a
cooler
little
than
flea.
Frogman. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So then
I will
Jen
say one
wants
thing,
to.
Kels. I
Yeah,
actually just
go
thought of this.
ahead, Dill.
This brings us full circle to our Daredevil talk when I accidentally calling Foggy Froggy. So I guess this was all it was all meant to be at
It
the
was
end of
all
the day
meant to be.
that there would be a Froggy in the Daredevil universe, of course, of course.
Absolutely, makes sense. So Jen wants to nip this in the bud apps like before they even get into a courtroom. She's just like, maybe I can go talk to Luke. Maybe I can get him to take some responsibility. That way there doesn't even have to be a lawsuit. So she confronts him at his place of business and he is just wildly offended. He's like, I can't believe you're betraying me. She's like, no, I'm not trying to. I'm just letting you know. Like if you just, take this little like plea bargain I have for you. Like no one even has to get sued. It'll be fine. And he's like, no, I've never made a defective piece of clothing in my life. I can't believe you've ever doubted me. I'm no
Yeah.
longer making anything for you ever again. He really sticks to his guns. That
As
Luke
he should,
Jacobson.
and I know like it's her job, but it's his job as well. He's like my
Sure.
whole business is reputation, and it's like, we have a trusting relationship. Why would you doubt me? Like, yeah, it's some people may say it's egotistical, but I understand when your job is all about like perfection, and you're such a perfectionist. When
Mhm.
someone comes and tells you you're not, with no evidence on the spot to prove so, it can get
Right.
infuriating. You know what I mean? So
100%. I totally agree with you there, Dill. So we cut to the courtroom and we see Jen and her client, Mr. Eugene Patilio, aka Leapfrog, and then we see Luke on the other side of the aisle there, but we don't see his representation. I wonder who it could be, and it's Dill. Do you want to take a guess? Go ahead, take a guess.
Okay, let's think. Who would be in a lawyer show? Who could be like a
Lawyer.
superhero lawyer?
Yeah. I like where this train of thought's going.
Oh wait, you know what? He's always. I think Wong is gonna be the lawyer. He always shows up in these situations. I feel like Wong is
He's
always like, we need a cameo. Let's throw Wong in there.
Wong.
We need a post credit scene for our
Is
finale. Let's have Wong take one of the
Wong.
characters. Yeah, is it Wong, Kels?
Dill, so close, but no. It's actually Matt Murdock from Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, they don't even share any letters in their
Daredevil.
names. Yeah, very exciting to see Daredevil. And honestly, I would have loved, just absolutely loved, if the teasers didn't give it away. If the little scene at the end of the other episode where the same clothing designer is carrying a mask of Daredevil, like maybe that could have been a fun tease, and then we've been like, wait, no,
Yeah.
it's just got to be an Easter egg. But the fact that they showed in the
Mhm.
marketing, this has been my complaint. Every single Marvel project has something that is spoiled in the marketing that ruins the movie. Eternals is
Sure.
maybe the only one that doesn't, because it was such like an unknown. But like Spider-Man No Way Home, we talked so much about it. Yes, they kept the 3 Spider-Men a secret, but how much cooler would it have been if we didn't even know that any of the villains were coming in? Because we knew the villains were coming in, we had an idea that Spider-Man could be, because it's their villains, like Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe. this is another case where it's like, you could always assume it's a lawyer show. Daredevil might show up, and we saw him in Spider-Man No Way Home already. But he's in this universe. But like, how cool would it have been if he walks in that courtroom and no one had any idea it was going to be him? You know what I mean? Like, how much cooler would that
Mhm.
have been? And I just don't know how many
No,
people
yeah.
can avoid trailers at this point, because trailers are not even trailers anymore. They're snippets on TikToks. They're pictures that are posted on Twitter. Like, they're everywhere. It's just
Right.
unavoidable. You know what I mean? So, especially for
Yeah.
franchises big, so that infuriated me, because I was like, this means nothing. It was exciting to see him, but at the same time, I was like, okay, cool, Daredevil's here, rather than losing my absolute shit, which it could have
Right.
been if they had just not told us. Because if they had not told us, I
Well,
would have been like losing my mind.
he wasn't in the trailer for No Way Home.
No, and that's why it was such a big reaction
No, and
when he
that's
showed
why it
up.
was so cool. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
even
You're right,
then, like,
Jill. You're
even,
right.
he's in the universe, but even then, it's like, how much cooler would it have been? You know, like, any of these heroes popping up, even someone we saw in the last movie, even if they had pulled in like America, what's her name, America Chavez in this, like, that would
Yeah.
have been cool, because it's like, we didn't know she was
Yeah.
coming. It's like, it doesn't have to be the most famous character, but in this case, it is. It's the character that everyone who before the MCU all loved on Netflix. It was the only real TV
Yeah.
star, next to Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. So it's like, it just didn't make sense to me why they would give this away, because I don't think this is enough of a selling point to get people to watch She-Hulk, especially because it's so late in the season. If people don't like She-Hulk, they're
Mhm.
going to tune out already. They're not going to hold out 8 episodes for Daredevil. You know, if he was in the
Right.
second episode or third, then yeah, use him in the marketing. But it's like, it almost seems like they were trying to get people to watch. But I don't think necessarily going 7 whole episodes is enough for people who were just there for Daredevil to say, well, I'm going to stick it out because Daredevil's coming. Like, I really think they would have gotten off the train. So I don't necessarily think it was really a smart marketing ploy either, you know? Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, Dill, I get it. I mean, I can also see the flip side where it's like maybe because like his big introduction to the MCU was No Way Home and they really kept that under wraps, and then that way, that was his big exposure, that was the big moment. So maybe now for future projects, if he's going to be included, they're like, "Oh, well, we might as well just it's not a big deal that he's in it anymore because everyone knows now that he's in it." You know what
Sure.
I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's also just the fact that the Spider-Man No Way Home scene was like 2 seconds, you know, which is also
Yeah.
something else. But yeah,
Yeah. I get you. But honestly, Dill, what you said before, and you were like, people are like mad that he was like being funny and like in a comedy. First of all, there's plenty of comedy in Daredevil. It's just dark. It's just dark humor, and
yeah,
it's
it's
very
not a
like
sitcom. Yeah.
it's witty. It's not
Mhm.
pause for laugh track. It's like it's very quick, and like he does have some humor to him in that show. He's not completely dry. I mean, sure, his friend Foggy is Foggy
Foggy,
Nelson,
yes.
yes, is the quote unquote comic relief of the show. But I feel like he Matt Murdock, Daredevil is, has his own dynamic to him wherever he
Yeah.
goes. And I thought
Mhm.
that he worked, maybe this is just me admiring what's his name?
Charlie
Cox.
Cox.
That's his last
Yeah.
name. Charlie. This is just me admiring just like him as an
You and
actor.
Jennifer Walters both just have Cox on the brain this episode.
Listen, and that's fine, Dill. We will get to that later, but we'll talk. We'll talk.
I know all the ladies are
Um
thirsting for Charlie Cox and for Daredevil, but I agree. Like, I think it was a
maybe
nice
this
side
is
to him that
me.
we didn't really get to see. I like the lighter side because it fits this tone
Yeah.
really well, and it works with Jen as well because they're still able to have those serious conversations. That's why I liked about this episode so much. Is like, it's still funny, but like,
Mhm.
because you have someone who is also superhuman and a lawyer, he's able to listen to Jen and understand her. And I like the conversations they
Mhm.
have between themselves, like at the bar
Yes.
before they even get
Yeah.
all sexy. Like, I think that stuff is really powerful too. Like, it just allows Jen to really just kind of be full-fledged, rich character, 100 dimensional. I almost said 100% 3 dimensional, but I combined the two.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think this
No,
introduction of
100%.
Matt Murdock allowed for that because he is also so chill, and it's like you could just talk to him. Like, he's not intimidating to talk to in the sense that, like, you don't feel like you're walking on eggshells having a conversation with him. Also because he can't see you, so he's fully just
Mhm.
listening to you. He has no preconceived judgment of how you look, like all the other guys in the show have. And I think that's another element that people aren't understanding is like, this is a guy who doesn't need to see her to be drawn to talking to her. And I think that's a
Mhm.
cool element to the show that has been preaching feminism. The fact that, like, all the other
Yeah.
guys come up to her and say something about her looks first and then have the conversation. He doesn't have to because he doesn't have to see her,
Mhm.
which I think is also a cool thing, a cool choice to have him specifically be that person.
Yeah. I think I just need to commend him really quick just as an actor because like I just thought that he just fit in like so well. Like it didn't feel like a fish out of water. It didn't feel
I
like
agree.
he was trying to like, do something different like tonally or anything. Like I just felt like Daredevil just like slipped right in, but he still stayed true to who Matt Murdock and Daredevil is. So I just had a great time this episode.
Yeah, I agree.
So essentially, what they start arguing first in the courtroom is that Jen wants to bring up like all of the past clients that Luke Jacobson has worked with. She wants to pull up receipts. She wants to dig through his files, basically of information, just so she can see if anyone else experienced anything faulty or that didn't work, something that went wrong with any of the other suits. But Matt Murdock is like, wait, hold on now. This is not relevant to the case. And Jen is like, this is standard for, a case like this. Like, I'm not asking for too much here. But Matt Murdock is like, wait, go back now because all of these clients, like, they have secret identities. Just because you have decided that, you don't need one, or like, you've decided to share your superhero identity with the public, like doesn't mean all these other people want to. And plus that you could be putting a lot of other people in danger here. So this list should definitely stay under wraps because
Which
I
is
think he might be talking personally here from personal experience,
and
being
just
that
the
he
fact
gets
that
his suits designed
yeah, and
from
also just the
by
fact
Luke.
that this is a show about social commentary. Maybe the whole idea of not outing someone's identity, even though you are comfortable in your
Mm.
own skin. I mean, that's another great,
Mm-hmm.
coming out day was last week, National Coming Out Day, and I think that's also a good sentiment too. It's like just because you're ready doesn't mean everyone else is, and that's okay. And I know
Yeah.
it wasn't specifically gay, but it was a gay metaphor, I think, or not even
No,
gay,
yeah,
but
for
just in terms
sure.
of identity and self, trans, um, bisexual, whatever. Like, I think that's like an interesting way of looking at it too, as like a metaphor for that, because I think superheroes, and they've been scholars have been saying this from the beginning of time, especially with the X-Men. It's like been a metaphor for minorities, for either gay,
Mm-hmm.
bisexual, or even just like different races. Like it has all been about like feeling oppressed or feeling different and having to accept the
Mm-hmm.
differences and roll with the differences and making that a superpower. Like that's what superheroes are. They're a reflection of other people's differences and uniquenesses. So I just like that social commentary, even if it's not like, in your face. I picked up on it. I was like, oh, that's like a good sentiment. Just because you're confident in your own being, our own identity, doesn't mean other people
Yeah.
are either. So
Exactly. Jill, I love that you bring that up because now all we need are heroes that are actually gay and more heroes that are
yeah,
people of color.
now we need to
And
actually
so
go
now we
further and
actually
instead of
need
making it a
to back
metaphor.
up the
Yeah.
representation. We need to back up all our metaphors here with the
Yeah,
actual representation.
yeah,
So
because I'll
I
tell
love
you
that you
right
bring that
now,
up.
Thor: Love and Thunder was the most, and even that was not enough. So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So basically what the big thing that we learned here in the canon of the MCU was that through Matt Murdock's whole speech about this was that the Sokovia Accords have been repealed. So a
yeah,
lot of people who've been Team Cap, me, forever, ever since Civil War ever happened, have was like, yeah, Cap was right. Take that. Take fuck your Sokovia Accords because Cap hashtag Thanos was right. No, Captain America was right. How about that? How about we start writing that on bathroom stalls, huh? That's
yeah.
all I'm
He
going to
also
say about that.
he also fucks. In case we forgot,
He
episode 1.
also, I mean, I never doubted. Look at him. Of course he has.
And you know who else will
And
at the end of
we,
this episode?
I sure do, Jill. But we'll
Yeah,
get there when we get there.
we'll get there when we
So
get there.
Jen ends up losing this case because Eugene is an idiot and he put jet fuel in his boots instead of the proper fuel, whatever he was supposed to use. And so he, basically outs himself on the stand and confesses to doing the wrong thing. So the case basically gets thrown out.
Another thing I loved about this moment is that it's the classic Matt Murdock using his heightened senses to be like to
Yes.
smell the jet fuel, and it's
Yep.
like it's not something they draw a ton of attention to, which I appreciate it. It's like, even if you've never seen Daredevil, you don't need a full explanation of Matt Murdock's backstory to understand that, like, in just that one moment, he's like, wait a second, is that jet fuel? And like, you're just wondering, wait, isn't he blind? And then you're like, oh, cool, he can like just tell just by
Yeah.
smell and other senses. Like, you
Yeah.
don't need to overtly say it, but you get in just that small little interaction just how powerful he is with his senses, which I thought was also cool. It's like Marvel kept the subtlety of Daredevil and let the audience, actually be smart and intelligent for a change and kind of put two and two together instead of having to
Right.
spell everything out for them, which was also very cool. So
For sure. So after the case gets thrown out, Jen tries to make amends with Luke, and he's like, "No, not doing it. You're dead to me," basically. He says that in like so many words. So we cut to the legal ease, the bar Jen is frequently at throughout this show, and she gets an appletini put in front of her. It's a little green drink with a maraschino cherry in it, and she's like, who's this from? And the bartender's like, oh, the guy over there. And it's none other than Matt Murdock. So he comes over to some to do some chatting with our gal pal Jen Walters, and we learned that he took the case because Luke made some suits for him, and they have some flirty banter going on. Dill, this is when I first noticed it. I was picking up on the vibes, and I was surprised because I wasn't sure if they were even going to take this turn between Jen and Matt here, but I was loving every second of it. I'll have you know.
I was too. Yeah,
Good. I'm glad. So they get into talking about, their jobs and their lives and everything. And Matt gives Jen some great advice, only the great Matt Murdock from Hell's Kitchen can. I just love how he brings that up so much. He's like, Hell's Kitchen. He loves saying it. He doesn't even say New York. He doesn't say Manhattan. He gives you the neighborhood. Hell's Kitchen.
Well, the devil always talking about hell.
Yeah, that's true. I guess, yeah, it's in the name. Should it go figure, right? So Matt tells Jen that Jen can help people. He's like, you're in a great position here because Jen Walters can help people when society fails, and She-Hulk can help people when the law fails. And I feel like just this sentiment alone kind of opens up Jen's perspective on her whole life here because, this entire series has been about her really having an identity crisis, just full on, because she's been wrestling with this idea of, no, I will never be She-Hulk. Okay, now I need to claim the name She-Hulk because it's my name, but I'm still just going to be a lawyer. But now at my lawyer job, I have to be She-Hulk because I run the superhuman law division. Like her whole, it's all about her just wrestling with these two different lives she's got going on, and she never knows what foot to put forward. She doesn't know if people are going to like Jen more, if they're going to like She-Hulk more. It's just been a struggle for Jen Walters, and I feel for her. It's everything we've all been going through at some point or another. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just finding yourself, and I love that that's been like the main message of this show. So we pick up Jen cuts to the camera and says something, and you can totally tell that she's crushing on Matt Murdock here. But then we get a call from Todd, the most annoying character in the world. Dare I say more annoying than Titania, who in my mind has just been complete chuffa. And in other words, just very unnecessary. And it's like, why was she even here anyway? So we get
and we never really get that answer either.
Exactly.
Jumping ahead to an episode, we never really get any sort of closure on Titania. What it probably, if we had to redo the villains ranking, easily the last place, like
Titania's last under Sonny Birch.
100%, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're not wrong, Bill. I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah.
So Todd needs a lawyer because he's saying that he won an auction. He won a genuine Wakandan war spear that he won at an auction. He won it for $1 million, I think he says, or something. He's just the absolute worst. He does the Wakanda Forever symbol. He crosses his arms and says Wakanda Forever. And Jen's like, oh, no, that makes me uncomfortable. Like, please stop. It's just very much like this show has just been like taking things that happen in like day-to-day life, but in like the context of the MCU, and just like holding up a mirror to like our society basically. And every single time I will have you know that you've ever gone, ooh, that's cringy, that makes me uncomfortable, or I didn't like that, just think about that now in your day-to-day life, just moving forward, because
Yeah.
that's what some people sound like, and that's what some people do. And like, not even the context of like doing the Wakanda forever, just like, how you treat people of color in general, like that should just be very mindful of the things that you're
Yeah.
saying and the things that you're doing. Just be
That's a good point.
respectful. We all need to have more empathy for one another. uh so Jen's like, what's the point of all this? Like, what do you want me here? And he's like, well, the people that I won it from the auction are saying that the Wakandans want it back because apparently it was stolen from colonists. And it's like, yeah, well, that tracks, my guy. This is like literally, it was immediately take me back to that scene in Black Panther during the whole museum sequence when they're
Yeah.
breaking when they're stealing the vibranium back. And he's like, where do you think your ancestors got these? Like, do you think they just came and asked and took them politely? Like, no, they stole. So just anytime I can talk about Black Panther is a good day, because that movie
Yeah.
is just really something else.
So good. And the trailers still keep it's so exciting. I'm so excited
It's
for that.
so exciting. Oh my god.
The new trailer, so good. Oh, we haven't really talked about that, but again, I watched it once and said nope, never again. Just because I don't want
Yeah,
to dissect it, because I'm like, if
for
I
sure.
dig too deep, I'm gonna start to reveal the whole plot, and I don't want to do that. And I
I
ranted
mean,
on Twitter. The fact that, oh god, I'm gonna rant again. The fact that,
go
again,
ahead.
Marvel gives away everything in its marketing, and they gave away who the Black Panther was. But I'm not gonna say it here in case you haven't watched the trailer. But yeah, they make it obvious who the Black Panther is, and while it is kind of what I was always predicting, it's annoying to know, because that would have been a cool way to maybe keep it a surprise, maybe make it feel worthwhile. Instead, you just show it at the very end of your trailer, a full body shot, and it's like, great, thanks. All right, so that's a surprise gone down the drain. So
Mm,
Alfred Molina, Daredevil, and now the Black Panther are all spoilers.
mm.
Great, thanks. And I know it's not about that. It's not about who it is. It's about the journey. I get it, but it's like, still, I don't know.
Honestly, Jill, I couldn't tell you really what happened in this. Is going to sound so weird because I can't really tell you like what really went on in the Black Panther trailer, because I was just so distracted by how good the visuals are. Just like every shot in the
Mhm.
trailer
You're
is
talking about
just
the new one, or both of them?
beautiful.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
both, all of them.
yeah,
Every
yeah,
single trailer ever. Like every shot is just so
yeah,
beautiful, so
yeah,
detailed and meticulous. And we're underwater in some of them. We're like nighttime, daytime, every single frame in that trailer. It's making me so excited for the movie. It's
yeah,
just you can tell that they really took their time and put their just whole hearts and souls into the making of this movie, which
yeah.
is
I'm
what
very
exactly what
excited.
it deserves and what
Yeah. I mean,
Chadwick
that
deserves.
that first trailer was my favorite just because of the music they chose, like the whole like everything gonna be all right, the Bob Marley song. I was like, oh my god,
Hmm.
this is so good. Second trailer though
Yeah,
was really great. I especially love M'Baku's little line there. I'm not gonna say anything about it because I don't want to spoil who or what may be the villain, even though everyone knows the villain. But very
sure.
exciting, very very excited.
So there's just no rest for the weary here, Dill, because as soon as Jen gets done dealing with Todd, she gets a phone call from Leapfrog and he's in danger. He's like, and she's like, in what way? Like physically or like legally? And he's like, well, I think both. Like someone's kind of after me right now. So Jen, swings into She-Hulk action for the first time this series. And so she grabs her outfit that Luke Jacobson made for her, and she goes to save Eugene. And the person that is attacking him is Daredevil. Good job, Jill. I thought you were gonna say it with me, but it's fine.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know. I would have said Wong anyway and ruined the joke with another joke.
No,
So
that would have been fun too if I was
imagine
just
Wong
like,
just
Dare
stepping out of the portal.
Wong. He's gonna pop up everywhere. Honestly, we should make it a drinking game. Drink every time Wong pops up in a project that is not a
Mhm.
Doctor Strange.
I mean,
Uh,
it. It'd be nice if
installment.
we went a whole year of Marvel trivia without having to rewrite certain questions, like how many appearances has Wong had in Phase 4. It's like every time that we put that on the document, we have to
Yeah.
change the answer every
Yep.
show because it
Yep.
adds up. That's why we'll never ask that question again because
So they fight for a little bit while Leapfrog makes his way back to the lily pad, which is his super secret lair. How cute of him. It's just so lame, this guy. But he's funny though, so I guess you forgive him, I guess. And so Daredevil and She-Hulk fight for a little bit. She ends up kind of deafening him since he really, he uses all of his other senses around him, obviously, because he's blind. And when she does her She-Hulk clap, like he gets momentarily impaired. And so she's able to unmask him in this moment. And that's when she finds out that it is, in fact, Matt Murdock. And she's like, I'm sorry, like your client is holding my client captive. So we need to go save my client. And that's why I was, doing this. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry. I came to a fight and sorry that I assumed that the guy who's dressed as the devil was the bad guy. And she's like, so like, what is this? Like, are you a superhero? And just so obviously, I loved how he delivered this. He was like, I'm Daredevil. Like, how have you not heard of me?
yeah.
And she's like, yeah, it was pretty daring for you to mix ketchup and mustard as your color scheme for his outfit. How do you feel about Daredevil's new look compared to what we saw on the Netflix? Yeah, I don't like it either, Dill.
And I don't think it's going to be the permanent look, but I think it's just kind of like a way to kind of give the fashion designer character a little bit more of an arc or a little bit more character in the fact that like he designed
a way
like,
to time in here,
more colorful suit. I really think it was just for the sake of trying to make him a suit to tie in that storyline with a fashion designer because he doesn't need a new suit. His suit in the movie or in the comic, well, yeah, the comic and the TV show is great. We haven't even gotten to seasons 2 and 3, but I assume they're just as good there. But like I like the all red. I get they're gonna bring Deadpool in, so maybe they're a little worried they like it to just
that they're gonna look too similar.
Maybe I never thought they did, but yeah, I mean it's fine. It's just again I don't like the whole color scheme, but again this show seems to be very self-aware, so I'm hoping maybe that was like a whole like no, we know you hate it and we're gonna comment on it.
Okay, maybe.
Like
honestly, what I like about his suits in like the Netflix series was that they felt a little bit more like, well, I guess because the whole point is that he didn't have a fashion designer designing for him, but I liked how his suits felt more like his felt more like he made them, like homemade.
Yeah.
Whereas like this is like a whole fancy getup that doesn't feel very Daredevil. He feels more like a vigilante. I sewed this myself kind of guy.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't fight in like Chanel, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I got you.
Or Jacobson, I should say, since that is the designer's name. So Matt and Jen decide to go save Luke together. He's taking this time to really explain to Jen like how his powers can work. Oh yeah, because when she unmasks him, she's like, "Come on, dude, are you pretending to be blind? Because that's kind of messed up." And he's like, "No, I really am blind. I have basically really good sense of hearing, and I use my other senses to kind of figure out what I'm doing." And she's like, oh, like echolocation. And so he's like, oh, I can hear the heartbeats of how many people are down there. So we definitely have to be stealth about this. She's like, you can't hear their heartbeats. That's crazy. And then, he takes a moment to listen to her heartbeat. He's like, I can hear yours. It's beating pretty fast. And I was like, if Matt Murdock ever said anything like that to me, I think I would spontaneously combust. There would be no coming back from that. I would faint. I'd pass away. Like if he ever just leaned into him and was just ever so sly, a little smug. I can hear your heartbeat. It's beating rather fast. I would just absolutely.
Kelsey, you're having a moment right now.
Do
you need to leave the room?
This was a steamy moment, Dill. I'm talking for all people who are attracted to Matt Murdock ever. They all know what I'm talking about right now in this moment. So anyway, sorry, I lost myself for a second there. We'll move on. So they devise some sort of plan. Jen wants to, as Hulks do, she just wants to go in, fist first and starts smashing everything. And he's like, no, let me do what I do. You've never done this before. The best way to go about this is all stealth like. So then we kind of see Matt Murdock in action. You know, he's taking out some of the goons / henchmen. But then Jen eventually just like breaks through the ceiling and is like, I like how she goes, She-Hulk smash instead of Hulk smash. You know, she's
I got it. Yeah.
Put her own twist on it. So, this is when I made the note in my notes, Dill. I was like, Dill, I think it's about time we finish Daredevil. I literally wrote that down.
I mean, it was always our plan, and then they moved it off of Netflix, and then it finally went on Disney Plus. But by that time, we were full-fledged MCU Phase 4. So our plan is going to be November. We'll have maybe a week or two before Wakanda Forever. We can get in a season, and maybe after Wakanda Forever, we put in another season. We will finish Daredevil by the end of this year. That is a plan. That is going to happen. I also want to do our taste test video around the time of Thanksgiving. So we'll have to figure out scheduling.
Nice.
We'll sit down and talk about it between Wakanda Forever and then, of course, the holiday special and then taste test. I think the rest of the weeks we'll probably have 2 or 3 trivia matches or 2 trivia matches because November, December. So we'll have like a good 2 or 3 episodes free to spare to get some Daredevil in. So we'll get it in. We'll finish it.
So the good news is still that throughout this mission, Jen saves Luke, and then Luke's able to forgive her. He's like, okay, well, I guess we're even now because you saved my life. So he agrees
now go have
to
sex with my lawyer. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I don't think that's what he said, but maybe it was implied. But he does agree that he will finish making her look for the gala. So not to fear, she will be showing up in something, which is why I'm surprised the episode ended the way it did, because the gala was mentioned a lot, I feel like, during this, whatever. So then Jen and Matt have a moment up on the rooftop. She's like, so when are you going back to New York? And he's like, tomorrow, actually. Tough break. We're not gonna have enough time together. And he's like, you know what? Next time I'm in town, maybe I should take you to dinner. And she's like, or we could just She-Hulk smash, if you will.
Yeah. And then jump cut to them doing it, and it's great.
Yes, good, and then we have
good for him.
Yes. And this is where I'd like to say, Joe, I am just glad because we've seen people like this before. We've seen this attitude and this character in Tony Stark, who was plowing through women in his earlier movies. We've seen it a little bit in Peter Quill and Star-Lord. I am just happy that we are now showcasing a woman who has a very normal relationship with sex and dating. Like, this is just very normal, you know?
Well, because you see it even on like New Girl and Friends. Like, I mean, it's normal. Like that's like kind of what sitcoms normalize. And I guess for people who are, so totally comic book accurate, I mean, they also do it in the comics too. It's not like the comics were super kid friendly. I mean, they were, but like at the same time, I mean, like they were real people with real issues. I feel like just the MCU, some people just get so bent with like sex in film, and it's like in TV, it's like we're also not seeing it. It's not like you're going full like Ana de Armas Blonde on Netflix.
Yeah, no,
like, they're not doing that. Like you're not seeing like full sex scenes. Like it's not porn, but it's like it's not like these characters don't do it though. So it's not like you're not gonna just be able to just have them be these total asexual robots. And if there are some asexual, that's a great choice, great, fine, but not all of them are. Like a lot of these characters fuck. So like. It's just like they crack jokes. People saying, "Oh, I hate all the humor." It's like I'm one of those people. Sometimes the humor is not welcome, but it's like they're still people. Like with Matt Murdock, like he's still going to be funny. If the scene allows, like if romance, if it leads there, it leads there. They're people, Well, not people, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm just happy that we're trying to get rid of this stigma that it's like, men have the liberty to go out and sleep with and date whoever they like. And, they don't face any repercussions, where if a woman does the same thing, it's like, people start saying, mean things and slut shaming and all that. So I'm just happy that we're just showcasing a woman who knows what she wants and knows how to get it. So I'm happy. And then we cut to a very funny moment where where Matt is doing the walk of shame in his Daredevil suit.
It's the best shot of
Absolutely
the whole
hilarious.
series. Yeah, it's so good,
Boots
so good.
in hand, he committed to the whole thing.
But he
And
has
I was
mask
like,
on the face, which is even funnier. Like he's right.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
because he's he has to hide his identity. All he was wearing in this moment was his his Daredevil outfit. So he had to go home as Daredevil, which meant mask on, boots off. I'm walking home. It was very funny, very funny.
Yeah,
So
we'll see a lot of that on next 2 Mondays from now on Halloween. We shall see the many walk of shame in costume. I can't wait. I can't wait as someone who's going to be working in Times Square on Monday, just seeing all the walks of shame.
oh
I
yeah,
can't wait
you're
to
right,
see it.
Dill. I'm gonna be right there with you. So
Mhm.
the app, as we've been discussing in nauseum during this recap here, is that the ep is just not over. We thought it wasn't going to end just with their hookup. We still got to get to this gala, but at
Yeah.
first Jen's really confused. She's like, oh, is this where the big twist is coming, where where another one shows up of me and it's red, or I get fridged? And I wasn't sure what she meant by fridged, but I did.
Look it up.
The red reference was actually a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to there is a red She Hulk in the comics. And the red
Cool.
She Hulk is Betty Ross from The Incredible
Ooh.
Hulk,
Oh,
uh,
interesting.
Bruce Banner's
I
original love interest.
Liv Tyler. I don't know if we'll see her again.
No, I don't think she's
Unfortunately.
actually coming up. I think that they were just making a nice little reference to the comics. And I appreciate when they do that because it gives me an excuse to open up that big book I have back
You
there.
just reminded me of the big Marvel news that we just did not talk about this week. Should we talk about it now? Harrison Ford just got cast as Thaddeus Ross to replace William Hurt, and I
Oh,
totally
I didn't
forgot
know
about that.
that.
Yeah, which
Oh
I
my
don't
god.
like at all because I love
Oh,
him, but it's also like you. So you're gonna okay? Sorry, let's finish this episode and then we'll talk about that because I have a lot
okay.
of thoughts on yeah. Finish this episode.
So Jen and Nikki go to the gala for whatever reason. Todd is there again. He's just like he's just like this flea you can't get rid of. I didn't know where my analogy was going to go, but
I
I
got you. I got you.
couldn't think of a good one. So basically, all of the nominees win. I guess this is their way of being like overtly woke, quote unquote, if you
Well,
will, by
I don't even know if they were nominees. I think they were all told they were the recipient of this award because in awards like that it's not like film, it's not like competition where like there's nominees and there's a winner. It's like you are being awarded this award, come to the gala, and it's like, oh, that's so nice. And then you I think her whole thing is she thought she was going to get there and win this prize, not
Mhm.
knowing that it was a prize that like 4 or 5 different women were going to get. So it's really not that important. Like I don't think she was nominated against other women. I think all of them went there with the idea that they were receiving this award, and she was receiving this award, but 5 other women were also receiving the award. Is what I got. I don't think they were all nominees. I think they were already going to receive it, right?
Well, this is the way I interpret it, Dill, and this might just be because I'm crazy. But so
No, fine.
well, this is what I got. I thought because Nikki does say like you're nominated for female lawyer
Oh,
of the
she said
year.
nominated. All right,
I think she
then you're
used
right.
the word nominated. But so in this is how I interpreted it. So I felt like they were going to nominate these women because at first they call her name and she's like, "Oh wow, it's me." And then they start calling all the other names and there's this kind of brief moment where Jen is like, "Wait, what the heck's going on? What do you mean like all these people other ones?" So I feel like they had nominated a bunch of women and then they all had them win. So then that was their way of being like, "You're all winners." When in reality, it's
Uh,
like it doesn't have to be like that
gotcha.
because well first of all there shouldn't be a female lawyer category
Right, we talked
as
about that
there
already.
is
Yeah.
like it should
Mhm.
just be whoever is like the best lawyer wins, which is
Yeah.
fine. So it was just a very convoluted way of like this corporation obviously helmed by a bunch of men trying to be like, well, let's throw them all a bone. But it's like,
Hmm.
no, don't throw me a bone at this weird gala. Just pay me the
Yeah.
amount I should be paid. Pay me the amount you're paying my male coworkers. How about that?
Yeah, you're
Uh,
right. Yeah, you didn't tell me you were nominated for Female Lawyer of the Year. Yeah, I pulled up the screen grab.
oh,
Kelsey is correct. She's correct. And I knew you were. It's just I wanted to make sure for myself, just because I
No,
wrote that
yeah,
down. I was like,
sure.
how much does that suck? I think that's even worse than the fact that, like, yeah, like they call your name and then they call everyone's name. It's like, you're all winners. I
Yeah.
thought it was just her
It
getting
really
there,
it
being ready to accept this award, then getting up there and
sure.
realizing that she was having to just share the spotlight. I think the way you said it, the way that it actually is, makes it even more tough to watch.
Yeah, it takes away from the whole sentiment of it.
Mhm.
So then while Jen is in the midst of doing like a brief little like thank you speech, someone hacks the screen and starts, and it's the men of intelligentsia, and they are revealing all types of personal information about Jen Walters. All of the information that Josh got from her phone that one episode is being displayed on the screen, and a sex tape is being released of Jen, and they start slut shaming her.
I'm
And
assuming, is
so,
this a sex tape of her and Daredevil, or is this a
no,
sex
no,
tape of
this is
her?
her and Josh, the
So
guy from the
Josh is,
wedding.
yeah, I know, but like, wasn't Josh in on it? So Josh
Yeah.
filmed himself.
No, yeah, Josh, like, I guess took one for the
Oh
team.
God.
Well,
Well, not
because
so good for
still,
the team. He
this is
probably
what I
liked
was
it. He was, well, yeah.
well,
Go
this
ahead.
is what I was saying before, is that a sex tape can release of a man sleeping with a woman and it's not a big deal. But if a sex tape releases of a woman sleeping with a man, that is unforgiving and unforgivable.
Mhm.
Absolutely a crime against humanity. How dare she express any form of her sexuality
That's
and
good.
have a good
Yeah.
time?
Well,
So
also, like,
it's different.
yeah,
It's different rules for Josh.
he
You know, Josh
intentionally
can
filmed
come
himself.
back
So it's
from a
perfect.
sex
Yeah.
tape being leaked, where
Mhm.
Jen Walters seemingly cannot.
Well, that's another criticism I have with these two episodes. One of my big ones is that Josh doesn't come back, because he doesn't come back at
Yeah.
all. He's just not an entity anymore. And it's like there's a different villain. I would have almost rather just be that Josh was the Todd role. I just don't know why they made this other character that's annoying. I get the whole point is he's supposed to be annoying, but I think if you had Josh be kind of the leader of this group, it would have been a lot more impactful. But we're going to get into it in another episode. But yeah, that's kind of where we ended this, right? Where she's like, oh shit.
Yeah, so
Um,
she hulks out, which is a completely normal response because I too, if I had superhuman strength, would punch through the TVs that were exposing my literal ass, figuratively and literally. I would also punch out those TVs, but then she goes. There's some guys who showed up there. They put things over their faces. One guy's filming her, and she goes after him, but before she can get any further justice, she's stopped by a bunch of police, and she kind of has this really real moment where she's breaking the fourth wall. She's looking right at us, but it's for the first time. It's not in a fun way. It's in a, oh my god, what the heck am I going to do? What just happened? Like, I really liked this moment at the end of this episode
yeah.
where she was like, it ends on her just like like really really sitting with what
Mhm.
just happened to her,
And for a
you know?
show that's been very episodic, it made it feel like there was some stakes going into the finale, which is an
Mhm.
interesting looking back on when we see what the finale is. But we talked about this episode. I know we said we'd briefly hit on this episode before diving into the finale, and it's 57 minutes. So our brief dive was 57 minutes. But really quickly, the news. Thunderbolt Ross, they
Yes.
recast the role with Harrison Ford. Obviously, unfortunately, Sir William Hurt passed away a few months ago. And Thunderbolts, obviously, Thunderbolt Ross is a huge part of the Thunderbolts in the comics, so they probably
Mm,
want him to be in it. But it's actually not for that movie. It's for Captain America: New World Order, which is the new
mm.
Sam Wilson Captain America movie. He's going to be in. Supposedly, probably end up playing him in Thunderbolts. Some people are saying, "Oh, he'll just be a variant. It'll be fine." But at the same time, months before that, people were saying, "Oh, we're not going to recast T'Challa. T'Challa is gone. Chadwick Boseman, he means too much to us to recast him." And that's right. That should be the sentiment. You can have someone else be the new Black Panther, but you can't have someone be the new T'Challa. It's not like
Mhm.
Mark Ruffalo and Edward Norton, where Edward Norton just left because of creative differences. It's not Terrence Howard and Don Cheadle. But now the same thing happens here, and because it's not like because it's an older person and I guess it's more of a supporting role, they're okay just recasting it with the most famous movie star of all time. It just doesn't make
Mm.
sense to me why that's the treatment. And even if it is like, even if they say, oh, the old one was a scroll, what if they had another actor come in and play T'Challa and say, oh, the old T'Challa was just a scroll? That would be kind of shitty to Chadwick Boseman's
Yeah.
legacy. And I
Yeah,
just
for
feel like
sure.
it's going to be shitty here. they should have just called him General Ross and had him been Thunderbolt Ross's brother and been like, I'm going to take up the mantle of the Thunderbolt. I'm going to do this for my brother. But when you cast him as Atticus Ross, it's like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It makes it feel like it's a fuck you, not an fu, but like if you're gonna say something about Chadwick Boseman, it feels very hypocritical to then do the opposite with William Hurt. I don't know if you feel the same way, but that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But I will have to wait and see what they do with it. If they do make him like a brother or relative, I'll be fine. If they make him a variant, I'll be like, ugh, whatever. But at least they're not like ignoring the fact that William Hurt passed away, because they're making that such a big point to honor Chadwick. And it's like, why aren't we doing the same for William Hurt just because he's older? You know, and William Hurt, I'll be honest, has more Oscars than Chadwick Boseman does. Chadwick Boseman couldn't get one. William Hurt has one. So it's like, it's not like Chadwick Boseman's any more renowned of an actor. It's just he's more popular because he's younger. But it's like William Hurt is more popular for a different generation. So it's like, I don't know. I don't like the choice. I'm fine with the choice of, you know, having Harrison Ford in the MCU. That's going to be cool. But like, I don't know. But
that's a good point, Dill. I didn't think about that. Yeah, that opens up a really interesting conversation that I feel like the MCU needs to have moving forward.
Yeah, like what happens if an actor passes away? Because like Dumbledore, they did it with Harry Potter, and it was fine because it was like this brought in a new actor, and that was it. But like, it's like it's different when you're addressing specifically Chadwick Boseman in a certain way, and then doing the total opposite for another actor that died within the same year as well. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll get there when we get there, though, when we find out more information. I just wanted to touch on that since that's also news that I forgot about. But let's segue to the finale, Kels. And why don't you tell us that little summary, and then we can kind of just dive into the thoughts on the episode, or just go into the first half of it at least before we get into the fourth wall break. I call it the fifth wall break because it's like we're breaking out through the TV screen.
That's like 16 walls.
Yeah, so
to quote,
I'm very excited
Deadpool.
to talk about it. Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's a good callback.
Thank you.
Tell us about this finale.
All right, so episode 9, the season finale, is titled "Whose Show Is This?" So in the season finale, Jen focuses on going after the Hulk King and the members of Intelligentsia by the book. She's very adamant about doing this legally and within.
Kelsey, Taylor Swift news. Taylor Swift, I just saw a tweet. Taylor Swift will release the second music video for her new album, #Midnights, on Tuesday, October 25th. So a week from tomorrow. You will be getting a music video for her new album. The
second music video? Wait, hold on.
Yeah. Hasn't she released the first one? I don't know. I don't follow too much of it, but sorry. I shouldn't have brought up Taylor Swift news because now we're going to go off another tangent.
Sorry. No. I'm screenshotting her. I'm screenshotting her story that she posted, and I'm going to look at that later. Thank you so much, Jill.
Yeah, you're welcome. I saw breaking Taylor Swift news, and I figured I had to mention it.
We can pause for Taylor Swift news at any time. It's fine. My mother takes precedence overall. So let's jump right into this ep, shall we? So we get our Marvel intro, and then we are immediately followed by a 70s TV crime style recap on Jen's life. We kind of get this like mini montage of everything that's happened to her, but it feels very Werewolf at by Night. It feels very,
a little bit.
Just because it's all like practical and it's old timey,
grimy,
and
yeah. It's an ode to the original or Incredible Hulk series with Lou Ferrigno. He's still alive, but yeah, he was actually the voice of the Incredible Hulk in the 2008 movie. Like he's done the Hulk forever, but it was like the old series. Like that was kind of the vibe and aesthetic of the old series. The very like comic booky, like
yeah.
So I just love that as like an homage to the older Hulk series, to be like, oh, like we see you.
I love that.
The aesthetic of the MCU is far beyond those shows, but there's something charming about the old aesthetic, which I like. So.
Yeah, it was reminding me of WandaVision, Dill. Remember those days? Anyway, so
I was but a wee child.
We cut to Jen being in jail. She's behind a glass cage like Emil was, and Pug is back. Pug is finally back. I've been missing him.
Yeah,
and he makes some he has some great stuff in this finale, and I was very pleased about that.
Okay, I disagree, but we'll talk about it.
Oh my God.
We'll circle back.
Okay. All right. All right. We'll get there. So we
Sorry,
come to her
didn't
whole
mean to
legal team is
burst your bubble.
there. No worries. It's fine. We can disagree on this podcast. I'm comfortable with that. So her whole legal team walks in, Pug, as I just mentioned, Nikki and Mallory. And Mallory seems to be the lawyer who's her main representation on behalf excuse me, of her case. And Mallory's, slightly disappointed in Jen because she's like, they baited you and you took the bait. And she's like, I had a very normal human reaction to what was happening to me. I was angry. Like it's what anybody else would do. And Mallory's like, but you're not anybody else. You are an unstable Hulk. And that's all anybody's going to see now. And it's like, it's very metaphorical of what I go through as a woman when I feel upset about something and I get angry and then I start expressing what I'm angry about and then I'm immediately told, "Oh, you're overreacting. Like calm down.
Right.
You're being
And
too loud."
especially coming from another woman too. That's tough to hear. I bet. Yeah.
But I don't even think it was a way of Mallory like really faulting her. I think it was just, she was reminding Jen of kind of the parameters that they have to live their life in, not only
Right.
just as women, but now that she's a superhero with superhuman strength, like she extra has to control herself and her
Mhm.
impulses and her emotions. That's just how it's going to have to be because
And
now,
support him.
as she said, that all anyone's going to see is an unstable, Hulk. So she ends up taking a plea, and the parameters of this plea is that she has to wear an inhibitor, as Emil did. So it prevented him from turning into the Abomination. Now, Jen is going to be prohibited from turning into She-Hulk. So she gets out of jail, and her parents are very supportive about it. Her dad is just so cute. He wraps his arms around her and goes, "Don't worry, Jen. People go to jail every day." Like it was just such a cute moment. I had to make a note of it. She loses her job. She loses her apartment. She has to move back home. Um, and when she walks into the doors of her bedroom, the first thing we see is a Legally Blonde poster, which
Oh, I
I
didn't even
love
see that.
that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's right on the back of her door as she walks in, and I was just like, oh, of course she would look up to Elle Woods. Why wouldn't she?
Yeah.
Um,
Female lawyer badass, of course.
exactly.
Lawyer
Uh,
badass, not just female.
so while she's exactly, so
I'm
thank you,
learning.
Dill. Good catch, good catch.
Thank
See,
you. Thank you. Yep.
see, not it's not all men, Dill, because you're not one of them.
Thank you.
Uh,
I appreciate
You're welcome. So, Jen and Nikki are working tirelessly and trying to figure out who is behind Intelligentsia. Jen is very adamant about, suing these people and going after them in a courtroom and not as, a raging lunatic as She-Hulk. She wants to do this by the book, the right way with the law. And for whatever reason, I guess the mom's just trying to lighten the mood a little bit. She shows Nikki a video of Jen acting crazy in college. She's dancing around with her underwear sticking out of her pants. Um, and she's like, "Oh, I'll send this to you." And Nikki's like, "Great." So it's just like
that.
this fun little moment that I was
Yeah.
confused at the time what that was all about, but it comes
Mhm.
back in later. And then we cut to we see Dennis, that awful colleague they
Oh
had at
yeah.
the old law firm, giving an interview on TV saying that, yeah,
Lying. Yeah.
I dated Jen and she was she was crazy even before she got the powers. Just giving an incredible made up story. That guy's delusional.
The
Um,
worst.
so, feeling very stressed out and feeling very alone, Jen turns to the only person she knows that has any idea that what she's going through, and that's Emil Blonsky. So she heads up to his compound for some advice and for somewhere to crash.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Nikki is on her own mission, and she decides to take the video of Jen dancing around in her underwear at college and post it on Intelligentsia so she can get on the inside of all these wackos online. And immediately she gets invited to, they're having some sort of an event where they're gonna, I'm sure, talk about how small their penises are. But obviously she can't go because she's a woman. So she needs someone to go in, posing as someone who partakes in the Intelligentsia website, and that is my good man Pug. I love Pug.
Yeah.
Um,
So Pug, has to like blend in and like try to be
yes,
this misogynist, and I like that as like a comedy thing. Like it's funny to
sure,
see him try, but at the same time, they don't get Jen there. Jen strolls in because she hears that Emil's doing this lecture up the road or whatever at his whatever, and she walks in. That's when she's like, "Oh, Pug, Nikki, you're here," and it's like, so we didn't need Pug and Nikki to do this for Jen to ultimately get there. You know what I'm saying? Like it just seemed like an extra little thing to add an extra subplot, when in reality Jen would have
sure,
made her way there on her own and would have ultimately figured out that he was whatever his screen name was, Hulk something. But like
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like it almost felt like just an extra added kind of chuff a little storyline, which was fun, provided some fun moments, but just when they could have just had Jen walk right in and
sure,
that be it, because she walks there
yeah,
anyway.
yeah. I get what you're saying, Dill. I mean, I think the whole
Like, yes,
twist of it,
they out who that Todd is the one behind it, but that's pretty much
yeah,
it. And I feel
yeah.
like Jen could have figured that out on her own if she walked in and be like, Todd, what are you doing? And he'd been like, I'm this person, and she'd been like,
Mm.
no, and it's like that's all you had to do, not have 5 minutes of Pug blending in to then have Todd reveal that he's the bad guy for Jen to just walk in a second later, and then everything goes into the
Yeah.
next direction, which we'll talk about. But that was my
Yeah.
only complaint, is that I feel like Pug was just kind of like they didn't know what to do with him, so they did this.
Mm. Oh. Well, I liked it. I thought it was a
I know.
cute,
I know you
funny
like the
moment.
character, so it's
Yeah.
it's gonna ring for you
I
better.
and still it's just I just love Pug because you can tell that Pug was is like Pug is the female gaze because he's just like this. He was, first of all, he was, you can tell he was a man written by a woman because
Hmm.
he's like perfect in every way. Like he's very respectful. Like, he doesn't disrespect his colleagues. He's there to support Nikki and Jen more than anything. Um, and he has a tough time trying to blend in with these awful, awful men. And it's like, well, he's just like this. I think I just like Pug because that's how I like to, but that Pug's the kind of men that I would like to associate most with in my life. And I'd like to believe that there's more men like Pug, that for every Todd in the world, there's 10 Pugs, when in reality, it's the other way around.
Knowing your
Um,
circle of friends, you have a lot of Pugs in your friends, and
I
that's
do
good.
have a lot
That's
of
good.
Pugs in my
You live
life.
you live with a
Yeah.
Pug, yeah, and
I
yeah,
surround myself with Pugs.
I'm not gonna say I'm a Pug, but you might
Dill, I
podcast
think
with a
you're a
Pug.
Pug.
Yeah, I think I am too. I just didn't want to say, because then I'd be
No, no,
becoming a
no.
little bit
You're a
more
Pug. You're a Pug.
self-congratulatory. But yeah, you surround
It's
yourself with
okay.
a lot of Pugs, and yeah, so I think that's a good thing. Nick
Yeah.
and Winston and Schmidt are Pugs. Jess
Yeah.
surrounds herself with Pugs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I am Jessica Day. Full circle now. So,
Yes, and I am the brown frog. I'm Winston, except I'm not Winston because I'm not black. But still, I feel like I'm a Winston.
yeah, I feel like you're a Winston too.
Yeah, 100%. Except I like dogs more than cats, but that's another story for another time.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
for
hate
sure.
cats though. I like cats. I know you don't, but
I
we're
don't
not
like
gonna get there
cats.
because
We're not gonna.
Chad
We're not gonna.
Chad listens to the show.
All
I
right, all
promised
right,
Chad we would not slander cats anymore
all
on this.
right. Fine, fine, fine. We don't. I won't bring it up. Um. So Pug is. Nikki is coaching Pug on how to be a misogynist, how he can blend in.
That's
With.
funny. That is actually funny. It
Come on,
teaches him
that's
how to. Yeah, that
that's
is funny.
funny. So she just goes, remember to refer to women as females, which is, if there's a faster way to get under my skin, I don't think it exists, because that's the quickest way for sure,
Mm.
is if you just keep referring to us as females, which is honestly kind of gross. So these guys suck. Todd is there and he immediately recognizes Pug. And I'm like, oh no, the jig is up. But then Todd is so delusional. And he's like, Pug, I knew you were one of us. Like, this guy's awesome. Like, he works up close and personal with She-Hulk. He probably has all the dirt on her. He probably slept with their boss to get the job that she has. And Pug's like,
So
yeah.
icky.
And
So
it
icky.
makes me angry. Like, he's very funny in this
It's
scene.
good acting in the scene, yeah, especially, yeah.
Yeah. And then we find out this is the big reveal that Todd is the Hulk King and he created intelligentsia. And so now their whole meeting starts, and this is when we find out that they have a guest speaker coming in, and the guest speaker is Emil as the Abomination. So we know that his in
Yeah.
well, Gadget has not been working. He's been turning into the Abomination behind uh Jen's back. And not only is the Abomination the guest speaker, he's hosting the event at his lodge on his compound.
Which is a total disregard for all the character development they did for him, which we'll get to later because it is purposeful.
Well, here's what I'll say about this moment, Dill, is that this is what I got. I just think that Emil, like Todd reached out to Emil and was like, hey, we need a guest speaker for like a self-help thing. And Emil was like, great. Like, I don't think he was really like, I don't think he was like pro intelligentsia, or like, I didn't think he really
No.
understood
Yeah,
who
but
he was giving a presentation to, because he was just going about his normal speech, which was, stay true to who you are, never back down, you have a purpose. And they were like, yes, our purpose is to be awful to women.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
you know what I mean?
I also think part of it is the fact that I think Emil realistically would have done it, but without the Abomination nature, because he
Okay.
promised Jen he would not turn into the Abomination anymore. I think the reason for him being the Abomination in this moment was for them to then comment on how it disregards all the growth he did in learning how to be just Emil,
Oh,
because that's the
right.
whole point they're
Okay.
trying to make later.
Okay.
So
I
I
see what you're
honestly get
saying.
why they did it, but I think realistically he would not be the Abomination. That's what the show comments on later, is that it doesn't make sense for him to be the Abomination here when we went through a whole season of him finally accepting that he will never do it again because he promised Jen he would not turn to the Abomination anymore. So
Yeah.
I immediately, as soon as he walked in, I went, that's weird. Like, that's just a weird thing, a choice, when he literally, a part of his growth was him promising Jen that he wouldn't turn to the Abomination anymore. I was like, why would he do it just for this little event? You know what I mean? So
Well,
I
yeah.
knew something was up.
I get you, Dill. Honestly, throughout the first time I watched the finale, I was waiting for the big plot twist. Like, I was waiting for like the hulking reveal. I was waiting for someone to stab her in the back. I didn't know if it was going to be Emil when she first got to the compound, and it was the main guy from the wrecking crew who jumped her in the alleyway from episodes past. Like, I thought that he was, he gave her a cup of tea and was like, hey, it's a special recipe, whatever. I was like, don't drink that tea. I was like, this is it. This is like, he's gonna stab you in the back. Like, I don't trust him. And so when he walked out as Abomination, I was like, he's the big baddie, isn't he? Oh my god, like Emil, like he's betraying Jen. But then, the finale ended up being something wildly different, which we're gonna find out in like a few moments here.
Fucking loved.
But first, things got to get crazy first. It was really getting out of hand here.
Yeah,
So
let's
Jen
pile it on.
enters.
All the stuff that happens. Yeah.
So Jen enters. She sees Pug and Nikki. Pug lets her know right in that moment that Todd runs intelligentsia. He's the Hulk King. He got Josh to seduce Jen into stealing her blood, and then he ejects her blood into him. He transforms into a Hulk. Titania crash enters through a wall.
Randomly, for no reason whatsoever, which again they do comment on, so we'll get there.
Right. There is a moment where Todd as a Hulk goes to try to get Jen, but Emil does pick her up to save her. Bruce is there. He comes in swinging. He's like, "Hey, let go of my cousin," and then he's
Yeah.
about to fight Emil. It just
because
feels
he
like a
thinks
fever
Emil
dream.
is picking her up for other
Right.
reasons. Yeah.
Right.
And that's where I immediately, the first thing I said is like, are you fucking kidding me? Because I was like, did they not learn from Hawkeye that when you have 40 different things going on, it makes for a cluttered finale? Did they not learn from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, from Hawkeye, from all the finales, except for maybe WandaVision, that there's just so much stuff going on, you need to stop cluttering it with so many plot threads? It's like, we talked about it, like the Kingpin on top of Echo, on top of Kate Bishop on top of Yelena, on top of Clint and his family, on top of the Christmas stuff, on top of the
Mm-hmm.
LARPers. I was like, it's too much. And
Yeah.
I felt like it was going in that direction.
But then Jen breaks the fourth wall, and it was like, this can't, like, is this the ending you guys wanted? And then all of a sudden, our Disney Plus menu
yeah, no,
pops up.
I thought I pressed the wrong button.
I
So
thought I pressed. I thought I did something too. I was like, I literally hadn't touched. I was watching on my laptop, and my hands were like not anywhere near like my trackpad or
okay.
anything. So I was like, what happened? And then she starts talking. She's like, why is this screen here? Wait, what's going on? And she's like, hold on. She breaks her inhibitor off. She punches through the She-Hulk title card, and she's like, let's see how I can fix this. And she's like, assembled. That is the one that I shall enter.
Okay, go to the production. Go all the way to the top. Yeah, I love that.
So,
I just love
yeah.
how it just immediately was like, nope, okay, we're gonna be fun and we're gonna do something different because we're not gonna make this a big cluttered action sequence like every other finale. And I was like, yo, finally they're taking it in, they're finally ending a show in a bold, interesting direction. I didn't even know what was coming next, and I like what came next completely validated it. But I was like, finally they're breaking the mold. Like, we're not just gonna culminate in the big battle. Like, thank you God, I was so happy.
Wow. I love this attitude that you have about it, Dill, because like I said, I've been going through a roller coaster of emotions about, well, first of all, this.
Yeah, let's get to what's also going on too. Like, we can talk a little bit more, but like, yeah, what were you gonna say?
This finale was presented to me, like someone had texted me and was like, that She-Hulk finale was really something else. And I was like, oh God, like now I'm nervous to watch it. So I kind of already had like a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth going into it.
That something was gonna
Because
happen.
that, something bad was gonna happen. So she breaks into the assembled title card. She goes to the writer's room and she's like, guys, what the heck is this ending? Like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, well, like this is the formula that we have to follow in all the superhero stories. Like, this is just how it is. And she's like, well, guys, why don't we try to do something different here? And they're like, no, this is the ending Kevin wants. And immediately we're like, oh, Kevin Feige. So then I was like, oh, so Kevin Feige's gonna be in this? Like, this shit's getting crazy now.
So did you not watch it with subtitles?
No, the second time I did.
Yeah, and did you see the K period, E period, V period, I period, N period?
It didn't come up like that for me. I looked at the subtitles and it came up just as the name Kevin.
Oh, for mine it was different. Ooh.
It didn't come up as an acronym. Weird.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, because I saw the acronym at first. Because at first I was like, oh, that's funny. It's a play off of Kevin Feige. Like, I thought it was an organization called Kevin. It was like the writer's room or something, or like the creatives. Because I saw the abbreviated version, so I was like, oh, Kevin must be like the intelligence up there. And I didn't know it'd be literally a robot, but I was like, oh, that's funny. That's a fun play on Kevin Feige, because Kevin Feige essentially gets what he wants. And this was the one part that I cringed at, was when he was like, but we don't bother Kevin. Kevin's God, or something like that. I was like,
yeah,
okay, you obviously, if this is going to be an allegory for Kevin Feige, I was like, it's a little too self-congratulatory, because at the same, because this whole time you're talking about all the flaws in your past series, but you're also trying to pat yourself on the back and be like, Kevin's God. I'm like, well, okay, like, either acknowledge that you've been kind of making some mistakes and like decide you're going to fix it, which it did, but also then don't pat yourself on the back and be like, Kevin, we don't go to Kevin. Kevin's the supreme, sorcerer supreme. I'm like, okay, like that one line, I was like, all right, that seemed a little too self-congratulatory, but
I was cringing for a different reason, Dill. I was cringing because they were like, this is the ending Kevin wants. And it just felt like very much like we're having all these conversations about Blade and about all these productions getting delayed. And we're like, is it because Kevin is stepping in too much and he's not letting any artistic freedom happen? And now I'm like, now I feel like I'm, we're pulling back the curtain here a little bit.
Well,
and I was like, this is,
he obviously must
awkward.
have signed off on this. So it's like, is he trying to be like, well, let's take the negative reviews we've gotten for some of the other shows and like, let's actually try to make the finales different. And you know what? Let's actually do something fun in She-Hulk and make the finales that, and then turn the script and make it like the opposite. And maybe like he saw She-Hulk as the opportunity to be the voice of reason, because she is a character he's so drawn to that he can say, let her be the one to tell the audience that it's going to be different from here on out. We're not going to follow the same formulas. We're going to try to be
Yeah.
different with Phase 5 because Phase 4 is
Sure.
TV. The finales, for the most part, were some of the weakest episodes of the seasons. So I think that was his way of saying, fans, I understand your criticisms, and I'm going to try to do better, which I
Yeah.
appreciated. But then you also bring up a good point. It's like, but they're also trying. He's also taking a lot of the blame for it as well. And is that like Marvel's way of saying that Kevin fucked all this up, or is it Kevin himself saying I fucked it up and I'm going to change it, or is it Kevin saying I think the finales are great, but this is just going to be a fun little gag? I think it's more the second one of Kevin being like, I'll take ownership. It hasn't been amazing. Like we've kind of fumbled the ball in some of these finales, but I'm going to instead look at it and try to like fix it and point out the problems and the fact that like this character does not need to be here, and they literally go through that. Hulk doesn't need to be here. Emil doesn't need to be the Abomination because the whole point of it was that he was going to be comfortable living in his own skin, and it would make no sense for him to be the Abomination, so they changed that. And it's like, we don't need the same old tired trope of the villain getting the serum because it's like the Silver Soldier serum. Like, I like how they acknowledged all that. It's just whether it was the writers trying to comment on Kevin and say like F you, Kevin, I just can't see it being that because I feel like Kevin wouldn't have allowed that to happen. I feel like Kevin's in on the joke as well. Kevin Feige himself. If that makes sense. Do
Sure.
you, like,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, I feel like he has to be.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
wouldn't have let this go out if not. I don't know. Maybe it slipped past him and now
It
he's
just,
watching it like,
I don't know, it just felt a little too real. It felt like they weren't really uh it, I don't know. It felt like they weren't fully, like, I don't know, committing to the bit. I guess I don't know.
mhm.
We'll talk more about that in a second. But Jen is very adamant that she wants to go see Kevin. She's like, no, I'm gonna go see him. So she ends up basically brawling her way there. She signs an NDA real quick at a front desk, and she finds herself in this room with a bunch of different screens going on. And she is like, what, where am I? And hanging in the center of the room is a robot, and it introduces itself and says, I am Kevin, and it stands for Knowledge Enhanced Visual Interconnectivity Nexus. And I was like, that's very smart, because I'm glad it's a robot and not actually Kevin Feige. I didn't
Yeah.
super want to, not that like I have anything against him. I just like felt like, I was like, I don't think he'd be able to hold his own in this scene right now with Tatiana Maslany, because she's just been killing it this whole series. And he asked her, he's like, listen, we can have this conversation, but you need to transform back into Jen because you're too expensive.
I
And
love the gag of like, we have to also let the camera cut away because we don't have the
yes,
budget to show you changing, which is also another good thing. Like, I'm glad they're able to comment on the fact that the visuals don't look great here, and I don't know if it's a half-assed way to get out of criticism. Like, that's part of why I'm like on some elements. Is like, are they trying to say that like, oh no, you can't criticize our visuals because we were in on it the whole time, or is it them kind of now backtracking and saying, oh shit, our visuals suck, we need to explain why? I don't know which it is. But it's an interesting conversation to have. Like, I haven't thought about it too much, but yeah, I don't know. The more I'm talking about it now, I'm just kind of like, I mean, it's an it's great because it's different. It's a different way of, it's a twist that I liked. It's cool. It's peeling back the curtain. It's something different and fresh. And I like that. And how Jen's like, we're not going to do the same old thing where it's just this cluttered mess of a finale. I like that. But the whole like, oh, we don't have the budgets, ha ha ha, like laughing about that stuff was a little weird to me. I was like, maybe not the thing.
yeah, this is what I was saying before, Dale. I was like, it just felt like they were like making these jokes about like, but I was like, no, but these are like actual issues that need to be addressed and corrected in the MCU. Like this like weird like producer control over what the projects end up being and what the endings are, and paying your visual effects department like the proper amount of money and making sure that they're not overworked. Like this is it felt like it was too soon to be making these jokes. It's like when someone makes a joke and you go too soon. You know what I mean?
I think if they were gonna commit fully to the bit, they should have made She-Hulk look even worse. Like, they should have literally made her look absolutely terrible so they can make that joke. Because I feel like it was like one of those things where when they saw the end product, they were like, I don't really know what we're gonna do. Let's instead just like try to like make this spin it into a way where it was intentional the whole time. It almost feels like this ending was thought of late in the game. Like sometimes people make a film or series with the ending in mind. Sometimes that's a great thing. Sometimes people wait until they go up further and then they see the ending come to them. This seemed like something where they saw the ending come to them, where they were going along and they were like, we need something at the end. And honestly, maybe we try to like take all the problems we've had with production and try to make it like a meta commentary on it, rather than them from the start being like, we're going to commit to making this a show where at the very end we can pull the curtain back and say all these issues were purposeful. Because I really don't think all the issues were purposeful, like you're saying. I think this is now them trying to like excuse themselves for the issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Sorry.
Are you distracted by Taylor Swift?
No, I'm not distracted by
Okay.
Taylor Swift. I'm having other things happen in my
It's
life.
okay. It's okay. We're almost done. We're almost done.
But what I do want to point out, Dill, that while we're talking about this visual effects moment that they did, was that he said, we can't have you transform on camera because our visual effects department moved on to another project. And did you hear the Black Panther music in the background?
I did.
It went those little drums. Oh, I love those drums because you know exactly where you are as soon as you hear that music.
And that
I
movie
was like,
looks like it has a lot of good production quality. So maybe
exactly.
So
they did the right thing, really.
Maybe the whole time they were like, you know what, visual effects department, don't overwork yourselves on this one, because I think it'd be cool if we then made that a commentary and like put all your attention to Black Panther, make this your secondary project, and like if it doesn't come out perfect, it's okay, because we're going to make that our whole thing. Is that it's not perfect. It's not about the visuals. It's not about the action. It's about the growth of the character development and the feminism, which is what I did like about this episode, is that it comes back around to Jen and what Jen wants this finale to be. And that's about her and her progress. And that's the stuff I liked about this finale a lot, was it always centered back to that. It didn't need to be about the action. We didn't need Bruce Banner coming through the ceiling. We didn't need the Abomination. We can still have a powerful finale without that stuff. And that's what I liked about this moment.
Right. So exactly. Jen wants to get back to the core of what this whole show has been about. And that's been about her finding herself as a woman, as a lawyer, as a superhero. It's been about her journey from the beginning. And it doesn't have to be this fantastical, weird, action-packed battle full of like nothing, basically. So she starts, making some serious changes. She's like, why does Bruce show up? Like, that's not going to be a thing. And he's like, no, like he was just on Sakaar. Like he's going to explain what he's been doing. And she's like, no, save it for the movie. So it's like, oh, we're getting that Hulk movie. Okay.
It's going to happen. I'm so excited too, because they fully confirmed it in this, I think. Like we're getting a Planet Hulk movie, and I'm so excited. Or World War Hulk. Either way, maybe both. It might be World War Hulk because of
which I looked into, Dill. So yeah, we'll talk about that after the other reveal revolving Hulk. Once we get
very
to there,
subtle reveal too.
So then we get rid of the blood plot because she's like, the villain is, he doesn't need powers to be a villain. Like he's still a bad guy.
Which is another great thing they're commenting on, because I feel like every show, it's the opposite. It's like they always get the powers, and it's like, no, real people can be villains too.
Yeah. And then they changed the whole climactic fight that was happening from night to day. And she's like, she sits down and she's like, let's talk about all these other cliches that happen in the MCU. Like I have so many things I want to talk about with you, Kevin. And I loved it because at a certain point you went, oh, you're sitting. Okay. Like this isn't ending anytime soon. Like I just love this moment. And I think that this was just this, she's been doing so well this whole series, but like this moment in particular, like Tatiana Maslany was just killing it. Like I'm a big fan of hers now. And she's
bringing up Orphan Black. Watch Orphan Black. You will love it.
I will now. I'm sold, Dill. So she starts bringing up the issue about how there's so many daddy issue plots in the MCU. She asks when they're getting the X-Men, and Kevin's like, I can't tell you that. And she gives, like a thumbs up to the camera, like, I got you guys. I'm going to try to, get some information out of him. And then she says, she has this cute little moment where she's like, oh, well, this is just what Hulks do. We smash things. For Bruce, it's like, tangible objects. For me, I smash fourth walls, bad endings, and sometimes Matt Murdock. And I was like, that's a slam dunk right there. I love that
That's a
line.
great line. Great line.
So Jen goes back to her story. She goes back to her story to sue Todd. The only thing that I wish that they changed also was the fact that Titania was there and she didn't need to be. I would have been like,
Well, I
get
think
rid of
that was the whole
her.
point. That they really kind of were like, well, I don't think they changed anything about it, but like the whole point was that she just showed up out of nowhere, and that was another thing where it's like she's kind of been pointless the whole time, and I think that this kind of commented on that too. It was like she doesn't need to be here. Neither does Hulk. Neither does Bruce. Neither does this. Neither does that. It's like you're making extra plot lines for no reason, and I think that's something
Yeah,
Hawkeye could have benefited from was a little bit more trimming down. And this
sure.
film, this one, it was like we're gonna trim down. And I like how we didn't even see any sort of battle. It just kind of opened back in the sunny area. I love how they were like commenting on the dark aesthetic, like let's brighten it up a bit, and I
Yeah.
love that. That's been my biggest complaint of Phase 4. So it's like nice to see them
Yes.
just kind of jump there and be like, let's conclude this now and make it about me and my character journey, my arc, rather than action. You know?
Yeah. So then Emil goes back to prison for breaking his parole. Matt shows up just because Jen wanted him there. She's like, "Oh, you missed the big fight, but I am happy to see you." So she's got that going for her, and then we cut to the big happy ending finale. She's
Yeah.
in her
And a
backyard having
barbecue
a bad barbecue with her parents, with her
and Matt.
family. Matt's there, and she says he's staying in LA for the week. So I'm like, okay. So we got more time with Matt Murdock here. All right. So then Bruce shows up and he's like, I know I've been gone for a while. I've been on Sakaar, but there's someone I'd like to introduce you to. And that's my son, Scar.
Yeah, not Sakaar, Scar.
Scar. And
How
if
original.
in case
That'd be like if we live on planet Earth. It'd be like if I named my kid like Earth, but
Art
spelled RTH, like Earth, not
Earth.
Earth, Earth. It's funny.
So, okay, so then before we get into that whole mess, because I did do some background
I
information
assumed you did, so I didn't. Yeah, I assumed you would.
on Scar. And I usually don't when I know a character is going to get, a full movie on, I'm assuming later on, but this one I had to deep dive into. So then we get our post credit scene and Wong does what he does best.
Wong shows up.
He shows up and he does what he does best, and that's break someone out of jail. And he breaks Emil out of prison, and he's going to live in a Kamartage in a
Yeah.
peace, I guess.
Yeah, and he
And they
asks
have
if
this
there's
key.
Wi-Fi, and it's like, yep, we
Yes,
do. And the password is Shambhala because
there it is.
it's in my head. I don't know why.
So, Dill, I've had a love-hate relationship with this. The first time I watched this, and even honestly a little bit after my second watch of this episode, I kind of felt I was like, well, this whole finale kind of felt like a little bit of a slap in the face to what I have considered a very well written and well established female empowering storyline. It's just been all about feminism and uplifting this female character, this heroine, in a way that we haven't seen done before. And I thought that they were doing an excellent job with all their metaphors and the storylines and the battles that she was going through. I thought that it was all great, and it just felt like they got to the finale and they all sat around and they were like, okay, well, now how do we end this?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, because I don't really know how you end it without like a
So,
big battle, and they also didn't want to do that because that's conventional. So I get
but
where
I
you're coming from.
But then I took another seat back and I was like, okay, well, maybe everything, all the madness that was happening before with the blood and Bruce showing up and Titania and all that happening, like maybe if that was the ending that they were really going with, maybe that would have been the ending that would have been like oh, how do we end this? Okay, then let's just have a bunch of chaos happen and then she saves the day and that's the end,
And
like
if that had
whatever.
happened, I guarantee I'd be sitting here trashing this episode.
Right,
Honestly,
right.
yeah, because you know
So
me, I
I
hate that.
So I really think that you sold me because you really had a good attitude about this deal. Was that I think that it was really about, like, literally she was reclaiming her story and what it was about, and she was 100% making it her own. So I think at a second glance, I can respect this ending for what it was and the message that it was getting across.
Yeah.
And you're right. At the end of the day, it was super different. And that's all that we've been asking for the MCU is for them to make different choices and to make
Yeah.
bold choices and to not always follow the same formula. And now they've had. So what can I do then to just say thank you? Thanks for doing something different, shaking it up, you know?
And you brought up the one thing that I didn't realize, which was the negative in the fact that like joking about the visual effects department would have been fine if we hadn't found out the real life situations of the visual effects department and how they were
You
actually
know?
just really mistreated. I think that adds an extra lens of like, oh, maybe we shouldn't joke about this. But I do see how at the time of making it, maybe they were like, yeah, honestly, this is a show where like we don't really know how to stick the landing. Let's try to do something different. And honestly, the She-Hulk, it's the visual effects are not 100% up to par because they have to work on Black Panther because we want those Oscars. We want to be a real amazing film because that is going to be our centerpiece of the year. So like this and Miss Marvel fell by the wayside, and maybe like instead of just having people criticize us, let's maybe see if this makes people a little bit more forgiving of it. And I think from that place it comes across fine. But I get how when you dig deeper and you're like, oh, but like should we be joking about this when like literal people's lives were ruined and consumed by this? Maybe not. And
Yeah.
naming him Kevin was a fun gag, but then saying Kevin is our God, like that was a little too much for me. So like
Sure.
I have a love hate with this as well, but a lot more love in the fact that yeah, it is different. It embraced the difference, and it kind of took us back to the idea of everything doesn't need to end in a final battle. It can just be about the character moments. Like Falcon and the Winter Soldier ended great, and then there was another episode where there was a big battle. Like it ended perfectly with Sam's training montage of him finally having the shield. It honestly should have ended there because like the finale was a big mess. And same with Hawkeye. It's like Hawkeye, do you need Wilson Fisk to show up at the end, or can you just make it about Yelena and Kate? And like you don't need all these different layers. And I think this show was finally saying, you know, we're done with that. We're not going to do that again. And going forward, we're going to try our best to make it about the character that you came to see, not necessarily the plots, all the plots that we can jam into this thing. So I like it for that reason.
And honestly, Dill, before we talk about Scar and all of that, since this is going to be the last time we talk about She-Hulk, at least for a while, this is the last point that I really want to drive home with this show, and that's the fact that this is going to sound controversial, but this is the God's honest truth, or this is at least how I feel about it. I just feel like all the men, and I feel like all the fans that have maybe that are older, specifically in the older gentleman crowd who've been here since 2008 and don't love that, like what this show, what it, whatever it was. Let me just put this into perspective for you for a second. This show wasn't for you. I know as an MCU fan, as someone who's been a part of the fandom for years or how many or like whatever, you're like, of course it was for me. Like I'm a fan of this. No. Like there are plenty of projects in the MCU alone that are for you, that are feature mainly male characters, that feature, big, tough, strong guys doing big, tough, manly things. Like they are now expanding the universe literally to different demographics of the fandom, which are the female fans, the female identifying fans, the queer fans. The fandom is growing, and
Even with like Miss Marvel as well, and
yes,
even
the
Moon
the
Knight.
the fans who are people of color, like this, like these are what these projects are now to represent these fans. And so not everything is going to be for you.
Mhm.
So maybe you should just take a step back and consider like, oh, you know what, maybe I didn't love this, but that doesn't mean that it was bad or that it was an unsuccessful project. It probably just means that it wasn't catered to you,
And
because
that's fine too, though.
the
Yeah.
majority of this universe is.
Yeah, and you
Because
don't have
that's
to like it necessarily either. Like
yeah.
I like to think like people who watch Werewolf by Night and they're like, it just wasn't really my thing. I'm not into horror. Well, if you're not into horror, it's not really for you. It's not gonna be for you because it's
Yeah.
a horror piece. Like if you're a fan of classic horror, universal horror, it's more made for you. That's just how it is. It's like it's every movie. Rom-coms have skew more feminine in terms of its demographic of who watches it. Do
Sure.
I like to sit down to a rom-com every now and then? Yes, I have Lady Bird on my fucking laptop. But
There you go.
it doesn't mean I'm the target audience. It's just I happen to resonate with it a lot and I really love that movie. It doesn't mean it's for me. And I get the whole argument. It should be for everyone. And I think if you open up your mind, it can be. But
Mhm.
the first and foremost, you're not the top of the totem pole. Like when they're thinking
Mhm.
about who they have to cater the film to, they're always in mind, catering to, whoever the primary subject, in this case women, is, and then they go to like the fans of comics and like, are we keeping true to the comic, and then also to the critics, are we putting in good style, are we putting in good writing, and then it's like the just casual movie fans who it's like, okay, now we have to make it entertaining and all that stuff. So I feel like there's a process you kind of have to hit,
Yeah.
and some things are just not going to be for you and some are, and that's fine. That is fine. It's art, it's subjective, it's all subjective.
The thing about these movies and the thing that unites all of us is that they're all characters from comic books that, we've all, like, in theory have read. And that's what unites us all in this cinematic universe. But as far as like the storyline goes and how well we connect with these characters, like that's all very subjective. And like you said, Jill, it can be for everyone. You just need to open up your mind a little bit more.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
all
and
that needs
even
to happen.
if you
You're the
open up your mind,
problem, not
if
the
you open up
show.
if you open up your mind and you still don't love it, that's fine too. Because I'll be honest, when I look at the grand scheme of things, the visuals really hold me back. I don't like the way they designed She-Hulk. I think it looks so artificial every time she's on screen. I love it when it's just
Mhm.
Tatiana. Those moments are great. There are scenes, and whole episodes that I feel like if you would just cut it out and just put a scene of them in another episode, it would have worked fine. Like, do we need the whole wedding episode to have introduced the evil character who ends up taking her blood and filming the sex tape? No, you really don't. You could make that part of another episode. But again, like, these are nitpicks, and like ultimately I think what its goal was to do was to just address women issues, especially in such a broad sense as this big blockbuster franchise, because when you are the biggest franchise you can make those commentaries. Star Wars gets
Mhm.
a lot of heat. The fandoms are very hot and cold with that franchise. It's because it's one of the most visible. We're not dissecting, like, I love them to death, but the Paddington films, which has its audience, but not the whole world is watching all the Paddington films. There's only two, but you know what I mean. Like, it's not a Harry Potter, it's not Star Wars, it's not Marvel. Here, it's a big franchise, and so they're going to take big swings. Sometimes they're going to be a little overt, and sometimes the messaging is going to feel forced per se. But I feel like in this lens, it can be forced because this forced this forced messaging is important to then hook you, to then open up your mind for some stuff that is less forced and more subtle, which are all the indie films and all the creative individuals and artists that aren't working for franchises, that are struggling to get budgets back on their films. Like, I feel like people will
Mhm.
watch She-Hulk if they had a different point of view. If their point of view was changed by watching She-Hulk, now they can say, I want to watch a few more movies written or directed by women, or I want to watch some movies starring women or with women action films. And maybe they'll explore things like Atomic Blonde for a female action film that like is a little less forced in its common messaging because it is its own thing. But because we had this show that was very in your face about its messaging, you were able to now branch out into stuff that is a little bit more subtle and nuanced. And I think that's a good thing. I think this should not
Mhm.
be the overall like most nuanced, perfect, artistic, chef's kiss commentary on feminism ever, because it's not. But I think
Mhm.
this will lead people to opening their minds to more of the films that are a little bit more nuanced, that have even deeper things to say, less generalized things to say about feminism, and really dig into some amazing, just different avenues through this. And I think that's the same with every Marvel show. Like, maybe WandaVision opened up people's minds to old TV and classic TV. Maybe Moon Knight made people think like, well, I should check out some more Egyptian or mythology based films and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And Miss Marvel, maybe I should check out some Bollywood stuff or stuff from like Asian culture. I think that's great. As broad or forced as it may seem, I think it overall has a purpose in kind of just because a lot of the times the people who watch Marvel movies, it's the only movies they watch all year. Like, I've talked to people who are like, I go to the movies about 3 times a year for all the Marvel stuff, and it's like, hopefully, you know, some very generalized messaging will bring people to then check out more films that have more specifics to say about the messaging, if that makes sense. I know it
Yeah.
was a long rant, but it was a positive rant because I think She-Hulk brings a lot of good things to the table that people
Mhm.
will take and hopefully roll with further and snowball into something greater.
Yeah. 100%. So, Dill, should we talk about Scar real quick before we head
I'm not
out
going to
of
talk about
this
it. You're going to talk
nearly
about it.
2-hour long episode?
Hey, our episodes are normally an hour anyway, so the fact that we're covering 2 episodes and we have off next week, it's fine. Tell me about.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm not going to talk about it. You're going to talk about it. Tell me about it.
All right, so Scar. Okay, so basically, this is what my Marvel Encyclopedia told me. So basically, in the comics, everything that happens to Bruce in Sakaar during Thor Ragnarok pretty much happens like that. A little bit differently. So he gets kind of banished from Earth and ends up on Sakaar.
I'll just say one thing. Try not to go too heavy into plot spoilers, only because if they do make a movie of Planet Hulk or World War Hulk or something, I don't want to know everything. But
I'm just talking specifically about how Scar comes about
Cool.
according to the comics. It could be totally different.
Yeah.
The movie could totally say something different. It could be a different character. Who knows?
Yeah,
But this is what my Marvel Encyclopedia told me. So in the comics, what unfolds in Bruce Banner's life in Thor Ragnarok happens a little bit differently. So while he's on Sakaar, say, we watched him be the Grandmaster's grand champion. He fights his way up the ranks. But in the comics, he ends up actually becoming the leader of Sakaar. So then he ends up hooking up with this woman named Caiera. How would you pronounce that?
I need to see it written out. Can you hold it up just so? Yes, spell it.
It's gonna be backwards for you, Dill.
Kaiera,
Kaiera, Sierra.
I'll look.
Yeah,
it up and
maybe.
See if I can find it.
So he
hooks
up
with
this.
By the way, it was good.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I don't know because it's the inverse to me. I didn't know if it was going to be the inverse for you. So he ends up hooking up with this woman who is, one of the lieutenants for Sakaar, and she gets pregnant with Scar, and that's basically how he comes about. Kiera ends up dying on Sakaar, and Hulk kind of goes berserk. He goes back to Earth to get revenge on the people that banished him, because he's like, now my, the mother of my child is now dead. And the Stark satellites, so the thing that we see traps him, Veronica, in Age of Ultron, ends up containing Bruce Banner as the Hulk and turns him back into Banner, and then he's arrested for his crimes. And then Scar makes his way to Earth to basically reconnect with his father.
I think it's Kyra. That's what I'm getting from the pronunciations. I think it's Kyra.
All right, Kyra. So yeah, he hooks up with this woman named Kyra. Scar's the result, and Scar and Daddy Bruce Banner find their way back on Earth to rekindle their friendship. And then it does say that eventually Scar does become a human. He changes back from a Hulk into a human. He changes his name to Santos, and then he lives his life in Paris.
Okay, so maybe you just spoiled the end of World War Hulk. I'm kidding. No, I don't know if they're gonna do.
Probably not. They're probably not gonna do that. Who knows?
Imagine if they take a ballsy decision to just make it a two-hour movie of Scar in Paris, just taking in the French culture and sipping on tea, eating a croissant.
Yeah,
Midnight in Paris, just Scar.
Midnight in Paris, but with Scar and Mobius,
bad, so
and
they can make
Mobius and Mobius because it's Owen Wilson.
Yeah, he'd be like, "Wow, Scar. So, do you like your croissant? Do you want another croissant? Do you want to go get some gelato?" Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be so good.
And that's all I found about Scar, Dill.
That's right. But wow, Scar also killed Mufasa. So, wrong.
Yeah.
Oops, my bad. So yeah, that's She-Hulk episodes 8 and 9, aka
8 and 9.
A lot longer than we thought it would be, but hey, we had a great discussion, and we had a great discussion about the culture of the fans and also just the way it's structured. Kevin Feige, visual effects, we talked about so much, including Harrison Ford. We talked about it all. So, Kels, I'll just ask you, before we take our week off, our much-needed week off, where can they find you, and what are you up to?
You can find me on Instagram at Kelsey A. Kilpatrick. You could follow me on TikTok at Cause13. That's where I'm posting my 31 frights of Halloween, if you will. We're watching a movie every day. I'm really watching 2 movies a day because I'm a day behind. I just tomorrow. Anyway, or you can
What are
subscribe to
some of the
my
most recent ones you watched? Yeah, you were gonna say
um
today or tomorrow.
yeah, today I just posted, so today Sunday, but you're watching this on Monday. I posted
So yesterday.
my reaction, if you will, of the Haunted Mansion,
Oh
the
god.
Disney movie with Eddie
The
Murphy.
Okay, I was gonna ask if the Eddie Murphy or the Muppets one, because they remade it
Oh
with the
no,
Muppets
not
last
the
year.
Muppets. No, no, no. I'm a purist when it comes to the Haunted Mansion.
I know, but still, the Muppets are the Muppets. They're great. I love the
I
Muppets.
don't know.
Are you oh, we'll handle this off camera. It's too long for me to debate you on why the Muppets are the best thing about cinema.
All
Um,
right. Well, that's gonna be a hard sell, Dale. I'm not gonna lie.
wow. Yeah,
The
it's funny because
best thing about
no,
cinema?
no,
That's a
I was exaggerating,
stretch.
but it's just so funny because
Okay.
Kelsey, you and I are both obviously such film fans, but you swim in more of like you swim in very different circles. Like I feel like I'm always just around our film opinions. Like you were trash on Michael Keaton, and he's like one of the most beloved people in the film community. So it's like very interesting how like you are also so anti Muppets when like everyone talks about just how much they love the Muppets. But again, I'm only swimming in certain circles. So maybe Swifties just don't like Muppets. What did they ever do to Taylor
All
Swift? Huh?
right, don't generalize us, okay? It's not that I'm anti Muppets. It's that when it comes to the Haunted Mansion, that was one of my
No, I know.
favorite movies growing up.
No, I know.
Maybe
I'm
because
not dissing the Yeah.
it was, I'm and Eddie Murphy, he's a national treasure. I will
Yes.
always watch anything that he's in.
Yes.
So,
So is Kermit the Frog. That's all I'm saying.
okay. Well, you got me there, I guess.
Yeah, okay. I'm just messing with you. But yeah, check out her things because they're a lot of fun, especially if you know the movies. Knowing the twists are coming and seeing her react to the twists are all fun because some of these movies have some pretty big twists. I can't wait to talk about all those movies with you because I want to get your thoughts on like The Shining and Blair Witch, but we'll get there when we get
Oh,
there.
for sure.
Oh god, such good movies. Well, one of them I don't like, but yeah, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
I don't like Blair Witch. Spoiler alert. Dylan_Randazzo, Twitter, Letterboxd, where I'm doing my own 31 Days Till Halloween thing. I'm behind on posting. I'm watching all the movies, but I'm behind on posting because I'm watching the movies in like the middle of the night because I have no time otherwise to do them. Because I'm
Gotcha.
working on the channel, and then at like this time, 1 o'clock, I'll probably start a movie at 2 and be like, yay! And today's movie is The Omen, the original The Omen
Oh,
for the letter O.
nice.
I'm working through the alphabet, so check out my review for The Omen eventually when I post on Letterboxd. I'm also going to be working on some New York Film Fest reviews that are on the back burner that I just need to edit. Also in the middle of my Disney series, and we're doing a draft day for horror, and it's just so much stuff. But it's okay. It's keeping me busy. It's keeping it fun. So yeah, check us out all over the place. Dill Pickle Movie Network on YouTube, where you can see this video and more. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with 2 videos. We're going to be doing our 31 Days of Halloween wrap up and just kind of talk, and maybe we'll post some posts on Instagram, and maybe you guys will ask questions and we'll answer them, or maybe no one will ask questions and then we'll not have to worry about that. And then we'll have 2 really good trivia matches, including finding out exactly who will be going up against Kelsey. Will it be Noah? Will it be JD? We will find out in 2 weeks. Until then, we'll see you.